different platforms, they only like keeping you on one platform is how I always look at it. So we try to go live on these multiple different places, but sometimes it doesn't work and sometimes it does. So hello and welcome. Today is a continuation of basically what we were talking about yesterday. Now, if you weren't here yesterday, we kind of talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly of inflammation, right? So we talked a little, and I saved it onto my, if you're a subscriber, for $2.99, you could get access to the old stream. A lot of good information in there, but essentially what we talked about is, I'll give you a quick recap, is we talked about inflammation. Now, let me know in the chat if anybody's ever experienced any inflammation. And somebody asked me today, and this is why I wanted to talk about this topic, was how do I know I'm even inflamed? Right? What's the warning signs? What's going on? How do I know if I am in an inflammatory response? Well, that's why we're here today to talk about it. So one of the things before we get in there, we have to look at, there's two different variations of inflammation, right? You have somebody who is in chronic inflammation and you have somebody who is in acute inflammation. Now, all inflammation isn't bad. I'm saying inflammation like a million times. But one of these days, I'll end up losing my mind saying it. But there's chronic inflammation and there's acute. Acute is like whenever you get yourself cut and the blood flows over there, you build a scab or you get a bruise, and then you hit something, you end up getting a bruise, right? We need inflammation to essentially live, right? This is kind of what we talked about yesterday, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I saved it. If you're a subscriber, you can go ahead and see. But most people, this is the thing, is that I didn't realize, but most people don't associate like their brain fog, their cravings, your bloating, your IBS, your all of these different, warning signs. Because one of the things that we talked about, chronic inflammation, is like the fire alarm going on in your body. Like, hey, fix me. Hey, Carla, fix me. Lisa, fix me. What the hell? Jenny, fix me. Right? And it really happens at the cellular level. And I think a lot of times when we think of inflammation, it's like, is this bad? Is it good? What do we do? How do we even know what's going on? Is this something? Well, let's talk about it here. So if you are somebody who is constantly fatigued, right? If you are somebody who wakes up in the morning and just can't get up, you're like, fuck, this sucks. Like, I woke up, give me coffee, give me energy drink. You're going to caffeine. You're going to these other sources. Maybe you might have a little bit of inflammation going on. Maybe you might be in insulin resistance. And so this is the very first thing that we're going to talk about. Is the very first symptom is constant fatigue. So if you're somebody who is in constant fatigue and you were somebody who is sitting there just wondering what the hell is going on, well, this might be what you're dealing with. Now, let's talk a little bit about why it happens. Now, if you're somebody who is very inflamed, or your body is kind of like in a constant state of repair, draining energy, repair, draining energy, repair, draining energy, this is the problem, right? Because your body is sitting there just trying to repair different things that you aren't actually addressing. Now, this could be from your foods. This could be, and we talked a little bit about this, so if I'm going through this a lot faster than we did yesterday, it's because I'm just picking up on basically piggybacking from what we did yesterday, right? I don't want to talk about the same exact thing, but piggybacking from what we talked about yesterday is cutting out the inflammatory food. So if you find yourself where you're really fatigued in the morning and you can't get up, let's look at some of the foods that we are eating. Now, one of the things that you can do is start making smoothies with the berries. We talked about this yesterday. Strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, even grapes, looking at fruit, right? Give yourself carbohydrates, like actual sustainable energy, or give yourself something that's low, a low burning carbohydrate, something with extra fiber like oatmeal, right? Something that's going to sit there and is more complex rather than really quick sugar, get yourself. So if you find yourself, well, Nick, it's not the breakfast. I'm only getting like 7 hours of sleep, like 6 hours of sleep. Well, if you track, right, and this is some of the things that you can do. If you track your sleep, I want you to look at a couple different metrics. And this is for people who are thinking they were fatigued all the time, right? This is specifically for this demographic. We're going to go through 8. We're going to go through 8 of these. But if you're really fatigued, I want you to look at your sleep. Look at your sleep. Do you get REM sleep? Now, people say rapid eye movement. Now, I want you to look at REM sleep and I want you to look at your deep sleep. Now, your REM sleep and your deep sleep are two areas where your body really goes through these chemical changes, really goes through the process of repair. And I don't want to get into a whole sleep study because that's not really my specialty, but these are some of the aspects that I want you to look at. Look at your REM sleep, look at your deep sleep. If this is something that is disrupted, you might be in a chronic state of inflammation. So something that you can change, cutting out the inflammatory foods, trying to get some really good sleep, like actual quality sleep. I'm not talking sleep for 8 hours, but 4 hours is actually quality. I'm talking about getting like 6 hours of quality sleep and making sure that you hit that, right? Like that's a non-negotiable. And getting yourself a little bit of movement, right? I do my morning movement series. I show you all the time. I do my different exercises, but giving yourself realistically 10 minutes a day. There's a lot of research that's coming out right now about gut health, right? We talked about this yesterday. We went deep in depth about where a lot of your inflammatory markers are. 80% of them are in your gut, right? And in your stomach. So if we can improve what's going on here, study just shown actually that if you do core work, believe it or not. Now, I'm not just saying this because I'm a yoga and Pilates teacher. There's been research that's coming out that shows that if you can actually stimulate core work in the beginning, knowing that this is where all of your inflammation is at, is that it actually turns on something called your vagus nerve, and it releases your adrenals, which is giving you adrenaline, which is gonna, what's adrenaline do? Boost you up. So, long story short, and they found this at the University of Pittsburgh. So that's always a cool study that I was just reading. I didn't get too far into it, but it's essentially what it says is if you do core work early in the morning, it can actually benefit you as like a cup of coffee. So get yourself out there and do some damn core work. And I always wonder why I got so much energy in the morning. All my clients are like, Nick, how do you have this energy? Well, I'm just doing my Pilates. So now if you're inflamed, something like me that I have to deal with is joint pain and stiffness. I know we have some people in here that are dealing with some joint pain and some stiffness. Let me know, right? Even if you're not that old, right? You're like, damn, I shouldn't be this old, but my fucking ankles are stiff. Like my hands, like it just feels stiff. Like what's going on? And a lot of times this is from chronic inflammation. This is like, it's hard to say because if you've ever heard of like rheumatoid arthritis, if you ever heard of all these different things, a lot of your aspects, a lot of these diseases are based from inflammation, right? One of my knees, right? So a lot of the stiffness that is happening could be because of you're inflamed, right? Now, why is this possible? When I was doing some of my research, there's something called a C-reactive protein. So if you look at, you can Google this, right? You can Google this after you're done listening to me talk about it. But C-reactive protein, essentially what that is it's a marker of chronic inflammation, right? So if you have high, and if anybody's dealing with arthritis, like if you have arthritis, you will know this because you have elevated levels of your C-reactive protein. Yes, Radiant, right? Maybe you've seen this, right? And so this is a marker not only of chronic inflammation, but this is a marker of arthritis. So now if you're stuck, right? And let's be real, I got 14 screws in my ankle. I got 2 plates. I'm going to have osteoarthritis no matter what. And my body's always in a state of inflammation because I'm allergic. I'm always inflamed, but I'm trying my best, right? These are the things that we're doing to help myself. So one of the things that you can really think of if you are dealing with like arthritis, if you're dealing with osteoarthritis, osteopenia, right? A couple things that we could start to do is movement, right? Movement's always going to be key, but increasing your omega-3s. Increasing your omega-3s. Shari, this how we doing today? This was actually brought on, this topic was brought on because of you, because you actually won. I don't know why I just said it like that. Because of you, because you said, I don't even know what my signs are of inflammation. What the hell do I do? So hopefully you could stick around and learn some things from us. But if you are sitting there with your C-reactive protein that is very high and elevated, there's ways that you can kind of go ahead and reduce said symptoms. How? Very first thing is omega-3s, right? Omega-3s. Now, if you are somebody who doesn't eat a lot of fish, maybe you are somebody who doesn't eat a lot of like walnuts or nuts or something like that, maybe you start supplementing with an omega-3 vitamin, right? An intake supplementation. Now, there's so many different omega-3 fish oils that to kind of choose from, right? How much increase the omega-3s? See, now this is always going to be subjective on the individual, right? For me, I don't eat a lot of fish, so I don't get a lot of fish oil and omega-3s in me. However, I do eat a lot of nuts. I eat a lot of seeds. So I get it from different aspects. Like you can actually look at flaxseed. Flaxseed is high in omega-3s. But really it's looking at those fatty acids, right? We always, and this really applies to a lot of my ladies and a lot of my clients who are over 40, right? I got a lot of clients who are over 40 and they are going through perimenopause or just getting into Nordic naturals. Oh, I'm gonna have to try that. But a lot of times what we end up finding out is, hormonally speaking, and I can talk a little bit about this. Hormonally speaking, we're going to talk more about this with the doctor tomorrow. We got an actual woman's doctor coming in here, and she is awesome. She's just wait till you hear all the knowledge that she's about to drop on all of us, because I can't wait. We're going to learn. I'm going to learn. You're going to learn. We're all going to learn. But the thing about women is that when we're over 40, I'm not a woman, but when you're over 40, you have different aspects of perimenopause, menopause, right? And hormonal changes and all these different aspects. Now, in order for you to regulate your cholesterol, regulate your hormones, and actually build more hormones, you need fats. So omega-3 fatty acids are not only going to help you reduce a lot of your inflammation, but help you increase the progesterone, the increase of progesterone, but your increase of insulin, increase of how you're going to actually start to digest your food, how your body's just, it's going to work so much more better because you are actually increasing your omega-3s. Now, this is something that I felt, it was almost like 2 weeks. Once I started supplementing more with fish oil, it was like a week or two that I was like, I feel good. Like my skin wasn't breaking out, or like I felt like, I don't know, it was like a weird energy. I was like, damn, was I missing something? But also for somebody who's dealing with arthritis, somebody who's dealing with a lot of issues, whether they are stiff, they're achy, even if you're not that old, right? I'm 35. I shouldn't be sitting there like, damn, my ankle, But reducing the sugar, right? I know I love sugar just as much as the next person, but sugar and really overly processed grains, and you can actually look at it, like if you see really processed like white bread, it gives us inflammation. Me being I'm an Italian, I love pasta, right? But I also found that regular like white pasta, like regular like kind of like cheap pasta that you would get at the store, would make me very inflamed, to the point where I would be like, and then pass out right after eating it. And then I would start to notice that like I feel sluggish. I started noticing that my fingers would swell up. That's how I knew. I was like, what the hell's going on? My fingers are swelling up. So I realized, okay, so I got to I like pasta. Let me just make the different changes. And now I'm using that Barilla protein pasta. Very good. Haven't had any issues of inflammation. And this has been like 6-7 years that I've been eating that stuff. But also an easy thing, if you are sitting there and you were really struggling like Nick, my hands, I can't do anything, and you cold bath. Get yourself into a cold bath or a cold shower. And I'm not Italian, right, Tara? Well, we all like it. But getting into, you might think it's counterreactive to do hot shower, but when you get into like a hot shower to think it's going to loosen up, your body's going to tense up a little bit. It's going to loosen, but it's going to tense as soon as you get out. Now, when we try cold therapy, essentially what we want to do is the cold therapy, the cold shock proteins. Something called cold shock protein. Essentially what happens there is that it reduces the inflammation because it sees that your body is like having this alarm going off. The cold is going to actually lower the alarm. It's like actually just like, it's like whenever you have the alarm going off and then you hit the button and you hold it in and then it just kind of shuts off. That's essentially what you'd be doing with the cold. You're just kind of shutting it off. You're not really doing anything productive to it. You're kind of just shutting it off, which lowers it and just reduces a little bit of the inflammation, right? Now, things that you can do, simple stuff. Now, let's get into some of the stuff that I think we all talk about, that we all deal with, is bloating, IBS. Maybe you have some food sensitivities. Now, this is another area where, how do you know, Nick, how do I even know if I'm inflamed? Well, are you dealing with a lot of bloating? Are you always bloating? Do you feel that like really you're like, I'm not even fat, I'm not even out of shape, but I got this belly, I got this tire, right? Do you have acid reflux? Do you always, like, every time you eat something spicy, or maybe you have some citrus, it's like, oh my God, I feel like, do you have any food sensitivities? These are all signs of your body being inflamed. Why? Because inflammation weakens the gut. So the inner lining, the endothelial, if you really want to get into some biology, right? Your endothelial cells, like especially in the gut line, and this is what kind of leads to what did we talk about yesterday? The words escaped. Leaky gut syndrome, right? We talked a little bit about leaky gut yesterday, and this is essentially how it happens, right? It's because you have the inflammation that is essentially weakening your gut lining, the permeability, because your gut lining is just cells, right, that are just kind of like this. And so what happens is, if the inflammation, now it starts to kind of loosen, it's, and then it has different stuff that's creeping up. And the problem with this is that every time that you have molecules that escape the gut lining, they go into the bloodstream, and the bloodstream basically looks at that and goes, oh my gosh, that shouldn't be here. And it sends an inflammatory marker. And so this is why, if you have poor gut health, and we talked about 80% of your triggers of inflammation are in your gut, right? So if you have poor gut health, what's going to happen? Right? You're going to trigger an immune response, which is going to make your digestion worse, and which is obviously going to give you leaky gut syndrome. And it's just like, So we talked about this the other day. Fermented foods. If you could start to get more yogurt, if you can get some more kimchi, if you like kefir, sauerkraut, add more fermented foods, that is going to lower and help your gut biome. Believe it or not. So don't be just sitting there eating all your fiber supplements and all this stuff for your gut biome. Actually start to do the things that you can do. Fermented foods. If you like kimchi. Now, I'm not really a big kimchi person. Sauerkraut. There it is, Shari. Start having a bite or two of sauerkraut in the morning or with your foods, as not necessarily, think of it as like a supplement almost, right? Really think of it as a supplement. Now, when you're having your foods, maybe you make that as part of your lunch. Maybe you're having some sauerkraut with some vegetables and some X, Y, and Z. Or maybe for breakfast, you're having yogurts, right? Because yogurts have all the probiotics that are going to help shape your gut as well. And this is something we talked about yesterday, is having a smoothie, right? Because what did we talk when we talked about the very beginning was being able to, if you have fatigue, being able to get yourself some actual fast, quick digesting, real carbohydrates that are going to give you energy. But then the same thing here is that we're going to use that same concept to help regulate our gut, regulate our digestion, regulate some of these things that are causing the inflammation in our body. So get yourself some fermented foods and add some berries, right? Like I said, add some berries, add some different fibers, and you'll be surprised on how much better you're gonna feel in the long run. But also reducing your gluten, reducing your dairy, your sugar, your alcohol, right? I didn't even talk about alcohol. Now, if you're somebody, and this is number 4, is that alcohol, if you're somebody who is, oh, well, Nick, I like to go out on the weekends, and then I like to do this, and now, if you're an adult, right, you make your own decisions. But if you are really trying to lose weight and you're really trying to get a grip on your health, what are we doing, right? What are we doing? Because every time you drink, what ends up happening is you get yourself into something called anabolic resistance, right? And I don't know if you've ever heard of anabolic resistance, but it sounds exactly what it is. Anabolic means that you're building your body. Resistance means that it's resisting the anabolic effect of the exercise and all the stuff that you're doing. So I know I've had a quick case study of a client I was seeing him in person 4 days a week for an hour and a half, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And we were grinding away, right? And grinding away. And he's kicking ass. He's getting stronger and stronger. But the thing is he never lost any weight. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, and I started thinking about my surgery or like myself. And I'm like, why can't I help this guy? And I realized that he was drinking like 3 to 4 glasses of wine every night. Well, it's just a social thing. I'm gonna do that. And Nick, you mentioned the gut resets itself every 22 days. Is there a way we know when that happens so we can ride that wave? Well, the thing is, the reason the gut resets itself 21 days is because you're refueling it with different foods, right? So if you're giving it better foods for 21, 22 days, it's going to start to remodel it because it knows that that's what it's digesting. It knows that that's what it's eating. And the reason how you would know that is if you're on your health journey and you're actually like eating healthy for a couple weeks. The first week is always tough. Second week's a little bit tougher. The third week, if you can break through that third week of like healthy eating, that's when you're going to see it, right? Because it's 22 days, 21 days, 3 weeks in, now your body is getting used to the food that you're digesting, and you're not necessarily craving like all the sweets. You're not craving all of the other bullshit, right? You're actually like, you could feel your body hungry. You could feel it digesting better, and really your poop, right? If you're not having like, if you have solid poop, that's how you know your gut, and this stuff is actually, if you're sitting there and it's just all over, that's a whole nother thing. And this is something that we can talk to with the doctor, right? Because she's going to have more, she's a plant-based medicine. She knows way more about inflammation and anti-inflammatory stuff than I do. And that's why I figured we'll bring her along because, I'm trying to learn too. I'm trying to teach you, but I'm also trying to learn. I'm always trying to learn, right? So we're trying to teach, learn, and do this together because that's what the community is all about, right? This is what it's all about. So that's a very good question though, Cherie. I always like that. So, alcohol though. Kind of going back to the alcohol is that we were working out 4 days a week and he was, getting stronger and progressively overloading, but he found that he wasn't losing any weight was because he was drinking every single night. And it was just, 1 to 2 glasses of wine. You don't think that that's going to do anything. But what we ended up finding out was his body was going through something called anabolic resistance. And the reason how we figured this out was because as soon as I started breaking it down and researching and looking at it, essentially you got to think, right? When you're doing exercise, when you're doing anything that is like vigorous or like, something that's building yourself up, your body gets inflamed, right? And this is what we talked about beforehand. Acute inflammation to repair your muscles, to give yourself a little bit more, the area where it needs to repair. And this is why we like to use inflammation. But if you're in a place of anabolic resistance, your body, when it sends those signals to go repair, it has a hard time connecting because the alcohol is really, it's almost like if you have a key. Actually, the very good analogy is if you've ever tried to get into your car and it's frozen, like the lock's frozen and you're like, I got the key, but I can't, like the lock's frozen. I can't get it in there. Like, what the hell, right? And sometimes you got to like jam it in there. Sometimes the key fucking breaks, right? And you're like, shit, I shouldn't have done that. That's essentially what's going on with alcohol, right? It's kind of like the key's trying to go in, but it can't because it's frozen, because the alcohol's blocking it. And so it's like, once you release the alcohol, and that's what we did. We said, stop drinking for just, let's do a sober October. We did a sober October. We started implementing leucine, which is an amino acid. Next thing you know, weight started coming off. He was like, Nick, what the hell is going on? Why? I just lost. And the thing is he lost like 20 pounds in a month, and you should never really do that. But his body just reacted so much to that. He's like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, science, right? It's reality. And this is why you reach out to a professional and a trainer and somebody who's going to look at this from you. If you're sitting there figuring this shit out on yourself, no wonder it's hard to find results, right? Because you're not looking at it from that perspective. A trainer, this is somebody who could say, oh, well, it's anabolic resistance, or somebody who is, well versed in the literature. But kind of moving on, going into brain fog. Right? If you're somebody who, even though it's not even really a medical term, but if you're struggling to concentrate, right? If you're struggling to like hold a conversation, if you struggle to even come up with ideas, you're struggling at work, you walk into a room, why the hell am I in here? You're forgetting your keys, you're forgetting all these things. Well, if your body is in a place of chronic inflammation, it disrupts their neurotransmitters, right? And I don't want to get too crazy into medical synapses and motor patterns and all these other things, but in order for you to do anything, we'll see how this is real quick. I don't even know if I have it over here. In order for you to do anything, your brain sends two signals, right? A motor signal and a sensory signal. So in order for you to move your hand like this, your brain has to send the signal all the way down and then has to send it all the way back up, right? And it's quick. And a lot of times whenever you are inflamed, it's going to slow down that pathway. Now, if you find that you are inflamed, and this is why, again, with the arthritis, right, it's a very similar thing. Is if you're always inflamed, the signals, it's just not getting sent back. And so what we have is something called synapses. So you have basically your neurotransmitter. They look like this. It's basically, and there's a little bit of like gap in the middle. And essentially, they're just sending signals back and forth, just back and forth, from the brain to the spine, all the way to your body. And if this part in the middle gets disrupted, and what ends up happening is it disrupts the neurotransmitters. This is where you start getting Alzheimer's, dementia, depression, right? It's because the signals, it doesn't have the pathway. It's blocked right here. And so we have to think about this on a way of, and this is why I always talk about, like, if you're always sitting in your thoughts and you're always bullshit and you're always like, oh my God, woe is me. If you could start to change the way you think, you could change the way that your brain starts to react, because you're opening up these neurotransmitters, because you're giving it positive thoughts. You're not sitting in the soup, basically. The brain fog is real, right? Cherie, well, this is exactly why, this is why we're here. Is that your body's probably under some sort of inflammation, right? So let's look. Are you getting sunlight first thing in the morning? Something that I tracked and saw that actually worked out for me. First 10 minutes, 15 minutes of sunlight first thing in the morning. That supports your brain function, supports your mood, and supports your circadian rhythm, which is something we really need. Your processed sugar, right? Your refined carbs. How much of like, what's your breakfast look like? Do you go for a sugary cereal? I don't know. I've been eating Wheaties. I don't know. I'm old school. I like my Wheaties, I always thought that was going to make me, I always thought Wheaties was going to make me a professional athlete, but it never did. They lied to me, but it's still good. If you ever look at the back of Wheaties, it actually said there's only 2 ingredients: wheat and like water. I'm like, damn. So, like, look at your cereals, right? Look at yourself in the morning. What are you eating? Are you eating a lot of good sugar? Are you eating sugar? Are you having bagels with cream cheese? I love a good bagel and cream cheese, but I'll tell you what, that is a carb bomb if you're not working out, right? If you're working out and you're able to use that energy and use those extra carbohydrates, great. But if it's just going to storage, what the hell? It's not giving you any use. This is why you're probably getting a little bit of that brain fog and a little bit of, figuring out, what the hell am I supposed to be doing here? But think about blueberries. This is it. This is all. If there's one thing you could get out of here, is blueberries. Start increasing your consumption of blueberries. There's one thing that I started reading about inflammation and Alzheimer's, and the people who they researched this place that they were a farm, or it wasn't necessarily a farm. It was just a section in Europe where blueberries were like kind of wild, and everybody just was eating blueberries. That was just like a thing. They would go and pick them and eat them, and just, they had no cases of Alzheimer's or dementia anywhere ever. And they're like, how? This is the only place that is like this. And they realized it's because they were eating a lot. I mean, probably a lot of other things, but one of the other things was they were eating blueberries like every day. It was just part of that was just their thing. So start increasing your day in blueberries, and start increasing your the walnuts, right? The fattier foods, right? Brain boosting foods. Start looking at foods. And this is the problem, right? When especially in this month, right? This is like the heart health month. This is the whole reason why we're going really scientific, why we're really going deep into the literature, is because every month or every February, I like to kind of dive in here and teach you guys a little bit about heart health and stroke and all the cardiovascular disease and all these things that essentially are contributors to the number one killer in America, which is heart disease. And and the thing is we don't realize that it can be prevented. Heart disease is the number one killer, but it's also the number one disease in the world that can be prevented. How? By doing the shit that we're talking about right now. Just doing the shit, right? Just doing it. Now, we're doing it, and we don't know. Maybe sometimes you're just doing it and doing it and doing it. You're like, damn, Nick, I'm not even seeing any results. But just realize that 20 years, 10 years, that we're playing the long game here, right? We're playing the long game. We're not playing like, oh, all right, I'm going to eat blueberries and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be like the next person. No, we got to start somewhere, right? We got to start somewhere and start to be able to utilize these things into our benefit. Now, let me ask you this. Since we're talking about brain health and brain fog, are you somebody who gets headaches? Are you somebody who's getting migraines? Are you somebody who is getting multiple? It's a marathon, not a race. You know that's right. All right, it's why we got to get you into the program. It's why we got to get you into the program, right? It's a marathon, not a race. I like to teach you guys how we stack these wins. We do fat loss phases. We do strength phases. We do mental phases. We do resets. We do habit stacking, right? We got to get you guys into the program. We got to get you onto the core 5. So if you're somebody who is struggling with headaches or migraines or something, inflammation is another way that you can kind of be like, wait, if I can cure my inflammation, am I going to get out of my migraine? Am I going to get out of my headache? Am I going to get out of it? Right? Because we also got to think inflammation in the blood vessels is what's triggering your damn headaches in the first place, right? Because when you think about it, you're probably dehydrated, right? So your body's in an inflammatory response. Now you're sitting there, you don't know, essentially, are you staring at a screen for too much? Is your head down and you're putting so much pressure right here on your nerves that whenever you look up, it jars, right? There's so many different things that can cause headaches, but I want you to think, like, is there any foods, right? Because we already talked about if you're in an inflammatory response, that can also be why you have your food sensitivities. That could also be why you have a lot of these different IBS and a lot of, just a lot of different things that could be going on inside your body that you don't realize that maybe it all started from your headache, or maybe it started from the inflammation, and then now the headache is just tertiary of all the other things that have been going on because you've been inflamed, right? Well, Nick, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about with inflammation. Like I thought I eat healthy, but how much caffeine are you taking in? Too much caffeine. Inflammation rebound. Boom, the circle. Because you're waking up and then you're forcing your body to get energy. And then you crash, more caffeine, crash, more caffeine, crash, more caffeine. The body doesn't have a chance to remodel itself. So what ends up happening is we start storing all the weight. We start feeling like we're storing right here around the waistline. And then we realize that our insulin is getting disrupted because we're in a chronic state of inflammation, right? And then now we're bitching about it and being like, well, our metabolism slowed down. Well, the metabolism slowed down because you stopped moving. And when you stop moving, chronic inflammation is going to start altering different hormones. And then next thing you know, we're just throwing shit at a wall rather than just taking the necessary things that we need to do, which is reflection, right? Reflect. Where are you slipping? Where are you struggling at? Where are you doing good at? And where could you do better? These are the things that we need to think about, right? If you are someone, Darian, how we do? Darian kicking ass every day. I mean, I'd love to see my clients jumping in here being badasses. But I want you to think, where are you struggling? Where are you doing good at? Where do you need to pay more attention at, right? We talked about all these different things, and we're going to be talking more and more and more about it throughout the whole month. But I want you to think is like, yes, all this information, we're getting doctors in here, we're getting some special guests, we're going to have all this stuff in here. But information without implementation is just noise, people, right? Just noise. So if you're getting and, going through and you're watching all these YouTube videos, you're watching my live streams, you're watching my yoga, you're doing all these things, but you're not actually implementing any of it, that's just noise, right? You're just, well, Nick, I got goals. Well, if you're not actually doing the things that are actually going to contribute to the goals, they're wishes. They're wishes, right? We have to start taking action. That's one thing for me. I'm grateful for people to come in here and, listen to the live streams and listen to me rant and go on these little rants and do these live streams and whatnot. But I encourage you to take some sort of action, right? We need you to take some sort of action, whether this is by yourself or you're flying solo, or if you're reaching out to me to be your coach, right? You need to take action. Why? Because nobody's coming to save you. We have to do the things to save yourself. And this is why I do these live streams. That's why I do, if you get value from my free shit, can you imagine what my coaching program's like? Let's be real, right? If you're getting all this value from the free shit, can you imagine what happens when you start paying me a little bit of money and you can get a lot, you start seeing some damn changes. But it's besides the point. Whenever we do these, you have to realize that you have to start with the reflection. Wherever you're at, wherever you're doing it from with my help, take those steps. You won't regret it. Darian, yeah, I mean, just you're over here kicking ass. But the thing is like, you have to start somewhere. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it all. And this is what my program is all about, is that, we layer it into a habit. We call it the first 5, where it is a habit stacking process. Week 1, we're doing this. Week 2, we're doing this. Week 3, once you get through the 5 weeks, then we start worrying about weight loss and all the other good stuff, right? Because the realization is that if you can't build a sustainable foundation, even by yourself, right, without even looking at a coach, you can't work on fat loss. You can't work on strength. You can't work on all these things, because you're going to always go in rebound. You're always going to go in the stop, start. You're never going to see any damn progress. But if you start simple, and you start coming to these live streams, you start whatever information that you're getting, and you start implementing one thing at a time, you'll be surprised and be like, holy shit, I am capable of this. I can actually do this. Holy shit, I actually do have my health in my control. Rather than getting sick, going to the doctors, telling them, hey, you need to work out, you need to eat better. Oh, shit, okay. And then you do it for a week, and then you go, well, whatever. And then you go back to the doctors, and they're like, well, I told you. And it's like, wow, shit. The thing is we just got to start somewhere. Why? Because a lot of times, inflammation, right? The inflammation, not only inflammation, but strength, muscle, metabolic tissue, all these different things can all be, like, your metabolic diseases can all be expunged if you just start working on yourself. How do you start working on yourself? Well, we just kind of went over it. So the very first thing that we are going to do, just to do a quick little recap, because now you get me in a rant of trying to get you guys to take some action for yourself. But remember, 2 different ways of inflammation, right? You have acute inflammation, which is good inflammation. It happens when you get a cut. It happens when you get, you're fighting off an infection. So you need inflammation. Your body heals and it moves on, right? Go. Now, chronic inflammation is when it's lingering for months, when you're dealing with that pain, you're dealing with that soreness, you're dealing with bloating, you're dealing with all this stuff, and that alarm never goes off. It's just ringing inside the body, right? It doesn't move on. The thing is you have to be able to look at a lot of these warning signs that we're talking about to be like, oh, the alarm's going on. We need to stop the alarm. How do you stop the alarm? Well, we got to see if we're fatigued, right? If we have the fatigue alarm going on, right? I'm getting sleep, but I'm not, I don't know. Let's look. Let's see. Are we moving in the morning? Are we getting actual sleep? What type of foods are we eating? Are we eating late at night, right? This is all different. Oh, Nick, my joints, my back, my hands. Oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm not even that old. Well, we know that if you are chronically inflamed, you are going to have joint issues. You're going to have rheumatoid arthritis. If you have elevated C-reactive proteins, right? These are all things that have been shown to negatively affect our health, right? And the thing is we can change these things. How? Well, we can increase the omega-3s. We can add some blueberries. We can reduce the sugar intake, the overly processed foods. Maybe we get into a cold shower, right? Just to reduce some of the swelling. Now, cold, hot, maybe I prefer, honestly, now that I'm even thinking about it, is contrast. I'd rather see you go through hot, cold, and go through there rather than just going straight cold or straight warm. You know, there's so much stuff right now about going to the ice baths and doing all this stuff. There is no research out there that says that ice baths give you any benefit at all, right? Now, subjectively, people might feel better, but the science hasn't shown anything. And being a scientist, I will wait for that, and then I'll report on that information. But your gut health, right? Are you bloating? Do you have IBS? Do you have irritable bowel syndrome? Do you have constipation? Do you have food sensitivities? Look at what you're eating. What does your gut health look like? Well, it's not looking too good, right? If you have all those issues going on. Well, the reason why, zinc. Oh, that's a good one. Zinc, inflammation. There's a lot of good studies coming on with zinc in regards to with vitamin C. Now, I haven't really looked into zinc into inflammation. I probably should. But that's actually what we're going to be doing on Friday, is actually going into, I got to research a little bit more of it, is all the supplements for inflammation. So we'll be talking about that bike rides on Friday. So hopefully you could come in and stay tuned for that. Talking about different types of, we'll save it for there. So a lot of the fish oils and talking about more stuff, maybe research a little bit more about zinc. But I think it's all gonna change Wednesday, right? Whenever we get the information from Doctor herself, and she's telling us all these different things, and who knows, I might have to change everything. You never know. But we don't change everything, because we're already doing our stuff. So last thing I want you to think of is, are you struggling with like dry skin? Do you struggle with, acne? Do you get rashes? Do you have a puffy face? Do you get dark circles? Do you get all these other things like under your eyes? Why? Because your skin is a very, how do we say, marker, or your skin is a reflection. Your skin is a very good reflection of your health. So if you're somebody who is very inflamed, you're somebody who is struggling with a lot of inflammation, are you really dry skinned? Do you get flakes? Like, what's going on, right? Because if you are very inflamed and you have gut issues, your hormones are imbalanced, now you have skin flare-ups, right? Because that's essentially what like acne and all these different things are. Now, I know for me, I would have very bad inflammatory responses to milk. I had no idea that I was lactose intolerant, and I was just eating milk, and I would have an ice cream cone, or I'd have a milkshake, and I would feel, not only would I feel like shit, but my face would break out. It wouldn't be like regular acne. It'd be like weird. And I'm like, this is fucking nasty. Like, what the hell is going on? And I realized that a lot of the dairy, I was lactose intolerant, but whenever I would eat it, my body would have such an inflammatory response that that's how I knew, I should probably go get something checked, is that every time I had milk, my skin would start breaking out. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Once I reduced that and went to almond milk, like for 10 years, I was drinking almond milk and all this other stuff. I didn't get any real responses like that. And then just recently they came out with that Fairlife milk, which is lactose free because it has the lactose enzyme in it. So it allowed me to drink milk again, but I still have a little bit of those inflammatory symptoms. So even though I know what it is, it's one of those things that you have to test, right? And the only way you could really know is if your skin, right? And this is something that you can really focus on, like hydration. I know we talked a little bit about the headaches, right? If you're somebody who has headaches, are you dehydrated? These are all aspects of inflammation. And so I want you to think, if you could focus on your hydration, focus on like, do any foods essentially like make you feel like shit? Do you break out? Do you get any rashes? Do you even know? Maybe this is something that you could start doing as, I don't want to say an elimination diet, but some of the very ones that make it real difficult for your body to digest is the casein. You guys are all in. The casein, right? So a lot of the casein it's a slow digested milk protein, essentially. And a lot of times it's weird because people actually supplement with casein as well, which is really weird. Was people supplement with it, like bodybuilders. They drink, like, instead of having like whey protein's kind of like fast acting. And this is another thing too, the whey protein, because it's milk based, I noticed that was something that was actually making me inflamed as well. So kind of, let's circle back a little bit here. If you're somebody who is dealing with inflammation and you're drinking a lot of whey protein shakes, let's think about this now, right? If you find yourself storing a lot of fat, or you're getting a lot of storage around the belly, let's look at this, right? Let's look at this. So if you're like, you might be thinking, well, Nick, I'm taking protein shakes. This is great, but it could also be doing something. Plant protein powder. See, Radiant, you like plant. I can't drink that plant protein powder. It tastes like dirt. Pea protein. Oh my God, that's nasty for me. I can't do it. But but then I do have whey protein that has, what was that? That IsoPure. IsoPure actually takes out, it's multi-filtered, so it actually takes out a lot of it has the lactase taken out, or if it, maybe that's not, maybe it just has the lactase enzyme in there. But that's a very, like, anybody that ever deals with inflammation, for like one of my clients, one of the things we look at is, what's your protein powder look like, right? Fart City with plant protein. Oh my God, Nutty, you ain't kidding, right? Like, Fart City, and that's the sugar alcohols, right? Those sugar alcohols, they'll get you every damn time. You never know if you're on those plant proteins, a fart could be disastrous, right? So that could be something. Oh, bone broth. See, that's something I saw that. I never tried that. You have to let me know if that tastes any good. The bone broth protein powder. I would love to try that. That would be good. But yeah, that's something to really think of, right? Like, if you're dealing with a lot of puffiness, right? If you're dealing with a lot of like eczema, if you're dealing with rashes, you're dealing with, acne, look at some of the food, right? Look at some of your food. Is it the dairy? Is it, I always find like the skin is what, like we said, is, it's the organ in your body, the biggest organ in your body, but it also allows you to tell you what is actually going on, right? And whey makes me feel out of it. See, that's the thing. Like, I've been drinking, I like the Fairlife Core protein, like the core power drinks. Like, I find that my stomach, even though that is milk based, it finds that Ancient Nutrition chocolate. Ooh, I might have to try that. Let me write that down. Ancient Nutrition. I like that. Ancient Nutrition. And I personally, like, if you could stomach it, I have that IsoPure. I have it on my my Amazon store link of the stuff that I actually drink. But it's just, I think everybody's gonna have to find what works best for them, right? Because what might work good for me might not work well for you. And somebody who's like, how different. You know what, Jenny? That is actually that's a very good question. So many of our food sensitivities are due to the fact of the wheat plant itself, right? And I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but when the wheat plant first grew from the wild, it was like this big, right? It was like this big. If you look at the wheat plant now, it is like this big, right? And the thing about it, though, is different because we have so many difference in population right now. So we had to modify the wheat plant to give us more yield. And, it's like, yes, it's genetically modified. And these genetically modified has definitely done something for us internally, right? Like, we know it has because even in the last 10 years, right, you can see the difference. And how you know is the strawberries. The strawberries now, they're fucking massive, right? I got a strawberry the other day. It literally looked like my muscle, my little muscle thing. I'm like, damn, like, what the hell? It's the biggest strawberry I've ever seen. And I tell you what, it tasted like water. It tasted like water. And the thing is like, when you do that, you look at the great wheat conspiracy, right? Yeah. When you look at the great wheat conspiracy, the plant was like this and it was really flavorful, right? But then when the plant grows a little bit bigger, that is modified, but it's just for more yield. But the thing is the problem is you don't want to just not want to eat them. It makes me not want to eat them right when they're fucking massive. But they have no flavor, right? And I think that's a lot of what's going on today, is that what we think is actually healthier food isn't really the healthiest of food, because it has been genetically modified to all hell. But we can't necessarily say that that's a bad thing, because we need to feed more people, right? If we didn't modify, this is the whole catch-22. And this is why I do the live streams, right? Is to try to teach people and teach you guys like, hey, let's just take control of our health, take control of the stuff that we do, that we can do, because they want to confuse us, right? They want to just say, hey, this, don't do that, eat this, drink that, eat that, don't do that. Holy shit, it's exhausting, right? So what we want to do is just be able to take the grips and look at the research from what it is, find yourself a professional, and be able to, listen, or you just follow my page and, you can get as much as I like to say, whenever I do research every Saturday, and I always try to research what's going on, and that really, it's my knowledge, right? It's just like, it's my continuous learning. And feel like I'm not, okay, this makes me feel like I'm not nuts. I swear I didn't have any food sensitivities 10 to 15 years ago. Me neither, right? Me neither. And the thing is this happens quick. And this happens too, like you see it in babies too. You see it in younger kids as we've gotten, as the years have gotten by. More younger kids have food sensitivities like this, like peanut allergies, and like a lot of stuff that maybe even 10, 20 years ago, whenever I was, wow, I think about that. Wow, I don't even want to think about that. 20 years ago, whenever I was 15, holy shit. Yeah, so makes me feel old. But thing is, what we can do today, because, we could talk about this all day long, is that tomorrow we are going live with the doctor, right? She is a plant-based medicine. She's going to teach us what types of foods to eat, what types of, maybe I was totally wrong. We'll find out. But we're going to do a question and answer. So we're going to do a Q&A. We're going to talk about, the eczema is out of control too. Oh my God, eczema is crazy. Oh, well, you see that more than anybody, right? More than anybody. Yeah, and a lot of this is because we're in chronic inflammation, right? We're smoking cigarettes, we're doing vapes, we're drinking, we're doing all this stuff. We're watching TV, we're getting pissed off. Trump this, Biden that, Kamala. We're fucking bad. We're ready to go after each other, right? But the thing is if we can reduce some of that stuff, reduce some of the inflammation, reduce some of the stress, reduce some of the cortisol. Holy shit. This is why, people are asking me, did you see the news? What's going on? I'm like, I do not know. I am talking to my people on Instagram. I am making my videos. I am editing. I am trying to make my podcast. If I start focusing on everything that's going on in the world, I will just be pissed off, right? And I don't want to do that. I want to be able to give people some positivity, give some people some outlook, some positive outlook, right? If you could just start to just look a little bit positivity, you'd be surprised on how your health, and you actually get in control of your situation. So we're going to be talking with her tomorrow. We're going to have some question and answers. I'm going to leave. We're going to have some stuff on my stories. I'm going to delete all my stories. We don't have time, right, Radiant? We don't have time for that shit. None of that stuff. We don't even bring that into our, anytime anybody gets any sort of negativity or kind of gets into that, it's just like, next, turn the page, boom, next, turn the page, next. Because the thing is if we sit there and we dwell in all the stuff that's going on, now you still have to have a lens, right? I don't want you to be totally ignorant. But the thing is I've been yelling about this stuff for the last 25 years, 30 years. Nothing's changed, right? So don't wait on somebody else to be the change. You be the change, right? You be the change. And if you can be the change, maybe other people will start to follow and be like, damn, Radiant's kicking ass. Damn, Teresa's out there doing her thing. All right, I see Sherry out there. I see Jenny do, right? Be the example, because that's just going to sit there and perpetuate. And maybe it might be a snowball effect where they're like, well, damn, Jenny's been doing it. At first, I was making fun of her, but now she's actually doing it. You know what, Jenny, how did you do that? And then now, right, you got to be positive, right? I love that. Be positive. And then, because it's just like anything else, right? The more positive you are, the more positive will attract. The more negative you are, the more negative you're going to attract, right? the law of it's a law of attraction. You know, right? It's really, if you don't believe that, it is so damn true. Because if you're always negative and you're always pissed off, you're gonna have chronic inflammation. You're just gonna be. That's just how it is. It's so true, right? This is how it is. But the main thing is staying consistent. It's not about stopping and starting and being, and really, I think a lot of times is content, right? We focus on this stuff when it's contextual or it's contextual for us too. Whenever we feel that it's, it's March, I guess I should start working on my summer body. That doesn't make sense, right? Well, I guess my bills are coming up. I should start to work a little harder. That doesn't make sense. Why are we doing stuff that is contextual to what we're trying? We have to be consistent, right? We have to just stop the stop-start aspect of things. And whether it is focusing on inflammation, whether it's focusing on health, whether it's whatever it is, it can't be contextual, right? It's got to be standards. We got to start setting standards for ourselves. So if we want to do any of these things, right? We want to reduce our inflammation. We want to start doing the little things that we want to do in life that's going to help us, propel us to get us to the place we want to be. We have to start taking some damn action. So the first thing that you can do, well, A, is tune into these damn live streams and get the knowledge and go, wow, okay, that does make sense. But you got to take the knowledge that you're getting from these live streams and the information and utilize it and implement it, because what did we say? Information without implementation is just noise. So that, my friends, is really all I got for you today. But I want you to think, what is one simple swap you can make today, right? And then identify what is your biggest trigger. Is it your sleep? Is it your motivation? Is it your movement? Is it your stress? Is it your diet? Like, what is causing you to get yourself into this inflamed position? And let's start identifying it. Let's make a simple thing, a simple swap. You don't even have to tell me, right? If you're in the Facebook group, maybe you can sit there and put it in the Facebook group. Maybe you go to the Core 5 broadcast channel and drop it in there, right? But I want you to think of one simple swap. Maybe it's walking more. Maybe it's swapping out some processed food. Maybe it's not drinking pop. Maybe it's prioritizing some sleep. And stay consistent, people. Stay consistent. Please stay consistent, because information doesn't go away overnight. It's not going to go away overnight. But small changes, they add up. And then when you look back 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you go, holy shit, I'm not even dealing with that anymore. What's going on? So that's what we're doing. And I'm going to leave on in the stories, I'm going to have a comment, a Q&A. So if you have any questions for our special guest doctor, please leave any questions you have for her. The more the merrier. No questions are off limits. She is a female doctor. So if you want to, or maybe you could just join us and then have questions whenever we are live. So it's going to be a fun time. I have actually, this is, if you were part of the, of our what the hell was it? Our vision board training back in the day, a month ago, 2 months ago, I talked about collaboration was going to be was one of the things I wanted to do. So we're doing it. We got the podcast, we got the collaboration, we're staying in momentum. I'm knocking things off of my vision board. Are you? That's all that matters. If you are, that's all that matters. If you're not, well, it's time to get the damn work. So I'll see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Q&A with Dr. Natalie, and we're going to go ahead and kick some ass. It's going to be fun. And I'll see you tomorrow, everyone. So have a good night. All right, YouTube. Hopefully you got some value from that, and I will